So across Africa, women entrepreneurs, continue to face significant barriers to accessing funding they need to grow their businesses. There are so many underlying reasons for this gap, which we will not go into. But just know that there is compelling evidence that supports the case for women to access greater capital than they currently do, compared to their male counterparts. And one more important thing to note is, let us not view this conversation from merely an inclusion angle. We are not trying to push a social agenda and say, it's good to carry women along since they are like half the population of the world. It's important to know that there is also commercial sense, and an economic sense to this conversation. There's data that justifies that, women deserve greater capital, and I'm going to cite some of those data before we go into the conversation. Permit me, please. So women-led startups generate more than twice revenue per dollar compared to male counterparts. That's according to BCG. Women-founded businesses generally exit faster. When an investor invests, they get their money faster from women-owned businesses compared to men. And then McKinsey says if women had access to capital, greater capital, global GDP could rise by $5 trillion. But then, despite this data, women still receive just 2% of VC funding. In Africa specifically, I think it's around 3%. And then, even as investors, women remain underrepresented. So over the next 30 minutes, give or take, we are going to explore some of the systemic and innovative pathways to close this financing gap. One more thing for our panelists, I would like us to approach this conversation from two lenses. When we say women-owned businesses, there are those just starting out. You get early-stage businesses, sometimes tech-enabled, tech startups, other times just normal brick-and-mortar businesses. While there are later-stage businesses, growth-stage businesses, that have been in existence for more than 10 years, but still struggle to get capital. So I would like us to have that in mind before we answer some of these questions. So with that said, let me throw this question to our panelists. These events like this happen a lot. We have a lot of conversations around these same topics. I'm not saying conversations are not important, they are. But I would like to know your thoughts on how we can move, from conversations to actually closing these investment gaps. What actions do you see us taking to actually realize this goal? Thank you.
A female entrepreneur who just made groundbreaking discovery in sustainable agriculture in a country, and she has access to the same funding that her male counterpart somewhere in Silicon Valley also has access to. On this panel today, I am here and I'm honored to be able to shed more light on one of the issues that affect our ecosystem. Just like the question had said, and he had rightfully put it, 3% of allocation is what goes to female-led or women-led enterprises. While we know this, it's not because of a lack of capital that we have that percentage that low. Most of the time, there's a fundamental mismatch between how businesses are assessed, the risk of these businesses are assessed, and the potential that these businesses actually have. How do they value them? You would see that most of the conventional due diligence processes that are in play right now are usually outdated models that look at male-dominated industries. Esohe had said something about when women-led businesses, that they're usually about empathy. They're usually about sustainable businesses. You would see that most of the risk models or the due diligence processes that are in existence right now don't even work with women-led businesses. And this is where we come to talk about equity, access, and power. This allocation, what we can do differently is to ensure that it's not about, we need to make deliberate efforts to ensure that we're allocating more to women-led enterprises, not just giving them 3%. We're talking about having inclusive due diligence processes to the ones that you have to work with the type of women-led businesses that are coming up, the ones that are starting, the ones that are already in existence, that even have a seat at the table. I mean, outside of also giving them capital, it would also be great to have mentorship. You've given them the investments that they want. Give them the access to accelerators, to moderators, to mentorship, to sponsors that can, while they're giving them the investment, they're also giving them the access to take that investment to the next level. So ultimately, it's not even about the 3%. We can increase the allocation. We just need to have a society that ensures that while we're creating investment strategies for businesses, we're also looking at, how would this investment strategy work in favor of a woman-led enterprise?
Thank you. Please.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? So it is actually an honor to be here today. I like conversations like this because it really shows that women are really supporting women. There was a time I used to say, women supporting women is a scam. But I mean, the fact that I'm seeing the faces here today and the conversations that have been had so far, it's good to keep having these conversations. So you see this topic around the 3% of VC allocated to women-led businesses. I'm not even surprised. I mean, we're in a day and age where women have had to be carrying their crowns and striving, even in their households, not to even talk about. It's striking, but it's not surprising to me at this point in time, because it's not that women cannot handle businesses. It is that women are not even in the rooms where these decisions are being made. So there's already a problem from the onset. And I see it as there's lack of intentionality when it comes to prioritizing women and women-led businesses. It's mostly about, a business is a business. They're not really focused on women-led business. And I like the fact that you said, let's have this conversation with not just thinking about startups, but also thinking about businesses that are already in the growth stage. Because women that have led businesses in the growth stage need to be pioneers of this conversation. They need to be the ones explaining and mentoring women that are just starting up. I'm pretty sure if I ask a lot of people here that have businesses, when you first started, was there a woman that guided you as to where you got to? Like, okay, you have a fashion business, or you have a cooking business, a food business. Was there specifically a mentor that was a woman that you had that led you to this point that you are in your business? So there's already that issue there. So if we are not even looking at things like that, how would they even take us serious to be in the rooms where conversations are made and where we are in this position where it's only 3% that is allocated to women-led businesses? So there's already a gap between capacity building and capital building. So a lot of work needs to be there, and that is where conversations like this needs to continue, because you have access to a network of people that can be mentors, that can be supporters, people that would guide you, whether you are even in growth phase or whether you are even in a startup phase, yeah? But we need to have these conversations. We need to really be there for each other. So that intentionality has to be there from the onset for us to say we are growing from 3% to 50%, which cannot be overnight. But I mean, with the momentum we are going with this day and age, I see growth happening soon. And for me, that I'm even in the non-profit sector, we have a lot of non-profit organizations that are started by women or being managed by women. If you do 10 non-profit organizations now, I promise you 8 of those non-profit organizations are women-led organizations, and they're receiving funding. So it means that there's something that we're doing that is good in terms of our own personal character traits, but in terms of support, women-to-women support, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard.
Thank you. Ifebuche.
Thank you, everyone that have spoken about this. I am so excited to be here. I mean, this is... conferences like this has really changed my life and, the face of my business as well. I feel, let's even start. When they said 3%, that figure shows that there is a problem. And we have been talking about problems. I mean, sometimes when we overstressed on something and we are not acting, it becomes a problem. Your solution becomes a problem when you're not doing anything about it. So, I mean, women across Africa, they are building amazing businesses, but they are not seeing the money. The money is not on the table. One of the speakers that spoke earlier said something about, just imagine when we have 5 or 10 women here doing like a business, maybe Zobo business or share butter business, taking their case to the bank themselves, going to the bank to ask for something, ask for loan, investment, approaching these investors in group. I mean, I feel that the trust or a kind of the investors will be more, they will feel more need to help a group than individual. Now it comes to collaboration and partnerships. When I mean collaboration, I mean it's sad for people to, if you are in the same business with people, you have this notion that they are your competitors. I mean, to grow, even the people you are in the same business with can be your partners. Approaching things as a community. I mean, investors, for what reason I don't know, are scared to really invest in women. And I mean, I would like to, if there is any investor here, to really tell me why. Because women are, I know they said when you impact a woman, you impact a community. That has just been mere talk, but it's actually a reality that investors are not seeing, especially in creative industry. For us, how we can move away from conversation to getting investment, let's take for instance, I am a fabric manufacturer. One of the challenges we have in the industry or in my field is access to fabric. So for you to, as a small business that is just starting, for you to be able to import fabrics, there is just a lot. You have to pay for a lot of things. And if we have a system whereby governments come, there is this thing they call consignment, or I don't know another words to it. If there is a situation whereby governments buy these fabrics for this industry, especially the small ones, because look at what is happening in the fashion scene. The fashion, locally made fabrics are global. It's like we are really making impact with our local fabrics. So if the government can come in, step in a little bit, these industries are having, I'm speaking for my own industry, the challenges we are having, getting access to fabric that we need. These are like conversations that we can take to investors, apart from government, take them to investors. Okay, if you are able to help us with sourcing this fabric, there has to be someone in charge of it. We can buy, you're taking off a lot of cost from individual. If all the adire makers are sourcing from one person in Nigeria, that's a way that investors can come in, apart from just, because some people have said, oh, women are not in the room where this money are decided. Yes, we know we are not in the room. So as we know that we are not in the room, we as women need to also step up and help ourselves, start taking steps forward to make some decisions that can help our businesses. Because the more we say things like we are not in the room where it's decided, this conversation will keep on going and going. What do we as women have to do about it? Not really talk about it. But if we can come together, okay, maybe after this conference, networking is very important. I have people doing similar things like me. How do we put ourselves together to approach banks, approach investors? So my take here is that aside from waiting for investors, women, we also have to do something beyond, looking for these investors. Okay.
But I have a question. Do you think women-owned businesses are over-accelerated and underfunded? I'm going to explain. I don't have the data points to back this up, but I think for every one accelerator geared towards businesses or startups general, there are 3 more focused on women specifically. You see a lot of women-focused accelerators and what's not. And every year, when you read VC funding and private capital reports, we still see a persistent gap. So what's happening? It appears they're just getting accelerated but not getting the funding. Then,
Okay.
sorry, one more thing. I would like to also hear your thoughts on this claim that the lack of data and perceived risks is one of the reasons why investors don't fund women.
Oh yes, so lack of data is though. What's the evidence how would I support you when there's no evidence to it? So let me take your first one, we'll go back to the second one. Government is doing a lot of work regarding women projects. So in short, private sector, they are doing a lot of work regarding female projects. I'm not even going to lie about that one because we're in this conference. But a lot of work is being done in terms of training. Oh, we are training this woman on soap making, on fashion, on baking, on cooking, and all of that. What next? I know one of the panelists, I think the previous panel, said something around, okay, there are some businesses that you can start up with zero capital. Yeah. But if we go back to, especially with non-profit organizations that work around women-led projects that has to do with training, thing whatsoever. So the person is now being trained on fashion. After the person is being trained on fashion, the person still needs funds to buy materials to start the business. You need money to buy sewing machine. You need money to buy materials. You need money to buy... Before you even buy mannequin, you'll be a human mannequin for your business. But there are things that you would need funds for. So you need to actually be able to have capital to start something. It might not necessarily be millions, but even 100,000, 200,000, it will go a long way. Start with buying like 4 fabrics that you can use and model and say, okay, these are the things that, this is the style I would do for the next 6 months, and this is what I would be advertising. So there are a lot of women accelerated projects. But I agree with you that in terms of access to capital, not so many organizations give that access to capital. Yes, the banks, they do give the capital, but there also needs to be some access to information for these people to know that, okay, if I do reach a sterling bank, I'm able to access this capital at this particular interest rate. So there needs to be more information regarding the direct target audience, because targeting is very important. You can be advertising something at a higher level, but it's not reaching the grassroots level, the people that do need that information. So a lot of work needs to be done in that aspect of how women can know can have access, can know information that would access capital. The second one was around data. So I always tell, so in non-profits, if you're not working with data, you are doing what they call blind leading the blind. There's nothing that you're doing, because investors for us in non-profit is funders. So you private sector, you can use the term investors, but we in non-profit, we use the term funders or grants makers. You cannot approach, let me give an example, a Ford Foundation or a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and say you need funding for XYZ. And there's no evidence to it. You don't have data of impact, nothing whatsoever. You're on your own. So you need to have that, that data. So I always tell people, before you start any project, that is when you've already started collecting data, not when you've gotten to the end of the project. That's when you're now thinking that these are your KPI to measure success. So by the time you start having data, you already know, and you start being intentional about collecting data, you're already one step ahead in unlocking funding from an investor or from a funder. So, and that is where storytelling also comes to play. This financial story, so there's storytelling from your project and there's storytelling for there's financial storytelling. So financial storytelling is where you are explaining how XYZ fund was able to do XYZ impact. You're giving them the qualitative and the quantitative data for this. You're letting them know that, okay, this amount of money that we used in the past was able to help with impact for beneficiaries in terms of maybe, let me give an example. Let's say there's a project around maternal health. Let me say traditional births. There's still people that do traditional births in rural areas. And you go and meet a funder. The funder wants to know that, okay, in the past, this amount of money, 5 million naira, how many people were we able to get to support with traditional birth? How many, what is the success rate of traditional birth? So all of these things are very, very important, because if you don't have data, you cannot unlock funding. So you need to start being intentional, regardless of any business that you're doing, whether it's fashion business or food business or whatever. You need to start having insight as to how you're going to use data to promote yourself in order to get funding from investors.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So do you think the emergence of alternative financing models, like venture debts, revenue-based financing, collateralization, do you think they can help bridge the overall investment gap for women-owned businesses?
Honestly, alternative financing models like venture debt, like you have said, revenue-based financing, they can be real game changers for women-led businesses. However, they can only be that if they are objectively flexible and they have the mindset of inclusivity for like women-led businesses. One thing that you said earlier was when you were talking about businesses that have been for over 10 years and they still don't have the right capital. In reality, traditional VC funding doesn't really target women-led businesses. They're really usually after high-growth businesses, heavy tech businesses, and the women-led businesses, they're not about that. I mean, most women-led businesses are usually very sustainable. They're like high profit. They target impactful, they do impactful or go after impactful issues. So we're talking about healthcare. We're talking about agriculture. We're talking about them giving us clean energy. The traditional VC, they don't fit the traditional VC narrative, which is, they firms get a group of investors to fund a portfolio of startups that essentially, they know that most of these startups will fail. I mean, they're getting money for them and they are putting it into like this portfolio because they're aware that most of these startups will fail at the early stage. They just see a handful of them that would cross over and survive. So those are the ones that they would now target on to ensure that they are able to return the investments back to the investors. Essentially, what that does for the business is it allows them to grow at a very, very high pace, a pace that they're not even used to, because they need to ensure that the investors exist and they get their money back. But women businesses are not like that. We're building sustainable businesses. We're building businesses that have impact. We're building businesses that have profit. So when we're talking about venture debt is about retaining power. It's not about giving out equity the way VC funding is. Essentially, for like strong female businesses that are after generating profit, it's just a path for them to scale in a dilute way while retaining their equity, but getting enough money to extend their runway to be able to raise more money while they're at it. And revenue-based financing, a speaker had already talked about that. I think it was Olori that mentioned revenue-based financing as well. So this just targets a part of your future revenue, what your company is making. I'm taking a percentage of it. If you look at that, it's looking at your business it's not looking at it with a what if mindset. It's a what is. How are you making money for your business? Your business is profitable. And we understand that there are some months whereby you don't make profit, but we're here to just take a percentage of it and not put too much pressure on you so that you understand that when you're returning this money, we know that this month might be low. We know that the next month might be high. However, we're here to work with you on this journey because ultimately, if you make more money, we get our own investments back on time. So in the end, like imagine if you invest in a revenue-based finance with a women-led enterprise, and she's not in a hurry. She knows that if she makes money this month, it doesn't really impact most of what she's giving back to you because it's only a percentage, maybe 10. And she knows that the remaining profit that she has after she has paid you, she would use it to invest in her own business. So she's working at a pace that would make her business grow at a sustainable rate. So ultimately, we have other financing models. We have the angel investors, we have blended finance, we also have potential capital. But all these financing models, when we go in depth into them, it's not even about them just giving capital to the businesses. If I'm giving you the capital for your business, does it actually work for you? Does it fit your business? Have we tailored it in a way that when you put it back into your business, it actually works for you and it gives you the intended need that you asked for it?
Your business model, you build a very successful business through bootstrapping, self-sufficiency, you actually funded your own business growth by yourself. So walk us through that model and lessons you think you can offer other potential women entrepreneurs.
I mean, this is a very personal question. and I am excited to answer it, but I will be brief as well about it. Okay, I started as a fashion designer and someone who also makes clothes, makes fabrics. I remember attending a program. It was a creative program. So we had like, I'm just trying to give us a backstory. We have just like the same number here. We are all fashion designers in this program. It was like about 2-3 weeks programs. Part of the activities we had during the program was towards the end of the program, we had opportunity to pitch to investors. That was one of the things that the program promised. But during the program, there were exercises that were given to us, like, as fashion designers and fashion designers, what are the challenges that we are facing in the industry, solutions, how can we solve it, and all the plenty stories, and, we are just talking back to back. So it was there I realized that, okay, I think I have solution to all the problems I've been hearing here. I've been listening, and I have the capacity to solve the problem. And that was where I re-strategized, and that one pivot brought me to where I am today. So I looked at the many problems that we are having, and one stood out. The one that stood out is inconsistency of fabrics in the market. And I also do production as well as fashion designer. Then I asked myself, why can't I just be a manufacturer and leave all of these people here to tailor the garments? So what that means is that possibly like 10 or 15 people from this room will be, at the end of this program, will become my customer because I have the solution to their problems. And that was how it started. I re-strategize in storytelling, which is very, very important. Selling your ideas through storytelling. That was how, at the end of the program, I had about 10 people there that started producing with me. So I moved from B to C to B to B because I have access to the challenges that the industry are facing. That was how I moved, I re-strategized. Then, it didn't end there because that was any stage of my business. I had no money, I had no space. I had moved to Lagos at the point, so I was just new to the whole system. The next thing is, okay, if these guys are becoming my customers, I don't even have money to buy material, fabrics, nothing. How do I go about it? I started outsourcing. So I outsourced the production to artisans across Lagos and outside Lagos. So what I do is they give me their business, so to produce for them, I take it to these artisans to work. They have the facility, they have the everything, materials to use for the job. So it was based on, I paid them based on commission. After the job, I pay them, I take my own, and I go home. That was how it was working. Then another thing I did to be able to save up money, I created a payment system that would allow me scale. I created a 60-40 payment system. So you pay me 60% to produce for you, then 40% after a successful delivery. So I have to also build trust. I'm looking for money, but trust is very important. So this way, they pay me from that 60%. I'm able to produce for them. From the 60%, I can as well buy the little materials I need, and I will also pay the artisans that are working for me. And again, I had to, artisans' consistency is a problem, and I know the people I want to target. These are people, actually I know the people I want to sell my market to. So I'm understanding your market, number one. I made sure that I don't compromise quality. And this means I have to stay with the artisans to produce the fabrics. If not, you go and come back, and I don't know what you will see. But remember, my 40% is still with them. And remember, I also want them to come back. So a lot are involved. So I had to the 40%, 60 made me to be disciplined. I have to ensure that I deliver quality product. And like we all know, word of mouth is very key. And I mean, in the industry, fabric inconsistency being the major challenges that we are having, I mean, that was how I come to you. There were times where when I wake up in the morning, so I take one day and get all the names of fashion designers, like about 20 of them. The next day is to start reaching out. As long as there is fashion on your page, I reach out to you. This is how I was telling my story. I would do this. Like, I have the capacity. You don't need to worry about fabrics anymore. I can produce it, and it will be consistent. All of this is how I was selling my stories. And keeping to a payment system that works. Because like I said, if I had waited, now, when I was doing all of these things, my brother wanted to give me money. Like, this, you're an entrepreneur. You've stayed here for... I said I don't need money because, I mean, the last speaker that said something, she said that we don't really need money to start a business. And when that plays is when you're doing something different. It's not enough to say, oh, I'm a fabric manufacturer. A lot of people are manufacturing. What is it that is different from your own? What is it that will make people come from anywhere to come and look for you to produce for them? The value you're offering. Separate yourself from the crowd. Become like somebody untouchable, disciplined. When you discipline yourself, make a decision to like say, you see everybody is selling Zobo. I have to do something that will make my Zobo and her Zobo not the same thing. So that when they see my Zobo, they will recognize it and they will come back for it. So it's about discipline and separating yourself from the crowd. That was what I did to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please, let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. You've revealed a lot of trade secrets here. Thank you. Please, very quickly, in less than 1 minute, we wrap up. Do we have any question? Just one question from the audience for them. Just one. Nobody's looking to raise money. Okay, we won't be able to take questions anyway. Okay, thank you. Oh, someone. Okay, so I think that's it really. So for me, I've learned a lot from the panelists. From the importance of storytelling and data to, and for women that have run businesses for over 10 years, successful businesses, you need to also, extend a hand to people coming behind you, support them, introduce them to, your funders, your backers, and all of that. So thank you so much. I've really loved the session. Thank you.